Hello everyone, I'm Mike Simmons, the founder and president of Astronomers Without Borders. We're taking a second try at the Google Hangout. We started last week and we had a little bit of technical problems again of a different type, which is why we're getting started a little bit late today. But we're live now. I'm on a different computer. The problem was actually with my computer, so just before going live, it decided to crash and wouldn't come back. But we're here now, and we have with us once again our guests, Scott Roberts and Joe Napolitano of Astronomy Outreach Network, who were behind the incredible Starlight Festival that took place over Memorial Day weekend here in California in late May. And so we're going to talk about that and see some pretty amazing pictures and videos from that. And we'll talk a little bit about the things that we did in Astronomers Without Borders with that as well. So we're also going to have our Astro-artists of the month from May, I believe, or perhaps it was April. Nahum, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but Nahum Mantra from coming to us from Mexico City, and he's going to show us some of his work and maybe talk a little bit about some ideas that he has for projects coming up in the future. So first, then I'd like to go to well, let's see, it's not there. So let's introduce Scott Roberts. Scott is the founder, and I don't know what you call yourself, Grand Poobah of the Astronomy Outreach Network. Scott's there in his office with one of the telescopes that his company, that he is CEO of, Explore Scientific, brings to the public as well. But Scott has been an outreach person in astronomy for years and years and years, well, during his time at Meade and before and since. And so he's one of the leaders in this. So welcome back, Scott.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
So what was the idea for the Starlight Festival? How did this get started? This started with a germ of an idea that you have.
Yeah, the genesis of Starlight Festival was I had been, as many of us have, attending the Riverside Telescope Makers Conference, the RTMC Astronomy Expo, and unfortunately, like some of these star parties, we've started to see a decline in numbers attending them. And I had the idea that in order to call awareness to these events, which are fantastic events to attend, because you're in an environment where you've got very knowledgeable astronomers that can show you the sky and help you really experience the sky, I think, in the best way. But I realized after just checking around that very few people in Big Bear even knew about the RTMC Astronomy Expo, and it was having its 46th year up there on the mountain. So the idea was that we were going to have sidewalk astronomers handing out day passes to the RTMC Astronomy Expo on Village Drive in Big Bear. Nothing more than that. It took off. I talked to the events coordinator because I thought you might need to get a permit for something like that. And that led to an idea of a street closure. We got pretty far along with the street closure, actually got approval to do a street closure, but in the end what we did is we centered everything at the Northwoods Resort, and so the main parking lot there. We still did our sidewalk astronomy down Village Drive, and so there's a lot of festivities that went along with that, and we'll get to that. So.
Yeah. Well, it turned into quite a bit more than you had planned, obviously.
Right.
And I, like you and many others, attended RTMC for many years. So this really brought in a whole new crowd, and we're going to show some pictures of that as well. Joe Napolitano, he is a media mogul, and you have to unmute yourself there, Joe. And Joe was the event producer, director. What do you call yourself on this?
I actually just helped Scott organize it.
Okay. And have you done any things like this before? You have entertainment background, but this is something completely different.
No, I've never ever done anything in the order of a live event before. It's always been films, or which is a lot different than doing something in real time.
Absolutely, yeah. And Astronomers Without Borders had a live event going on at the same time as well that I'll talk about briefly. There's no chance to edit or to redo things here. What was it like in the mission control room in the last couple of days leading up to the event?
It was pretty hectic in preparing for something that's never been done before, actually. We brought in a good friend of mine, Mark Cerruti, to handle all the media side of it, and he was quite busy. I mean, we were there a week before the event, and besides, organizing the event itself, it was really, quite well. Let's just say there were 8 cameras shooting for 2 days. Mm-hmm. So he had his hands full. A lot of it was live, but also there were editors that were there for both days, and they were literally, while things were being shot, they were editing and then posting it up to social media, as well as archiving a lot of footage for the future. So,
and our producer here in the Hangouts, as usual, Leanne Kennedy, looking behind the scenes, was also there handling media stuff, doing sort of streaming around the event with monitors showing everybody what was going on at other places around there. And I'm sharing a picture here now about a really new type of activity here that was attracting the families and the children. And Scott, maybe you can tell us about this. We have kids here doing things with Legos and so on.
Well, that's right.
You usually see at astronomy events.
As we started to put together the Starlight Festival, we got a significant underwriting contribution from Pepsi, and that changed the entire game at this point, because now we have money to actually do some things. And one of the things that we really thought was very important is that we don't just make this an astronomy star party event, that we make this a hands-on science and astronomy festival. And so one of our board members at Astronomy Outreach Network is Dr. Mike Reynolds, and Mike is heavily into STEM. He 2 or 3 years ago, he got an $18 million grant to do a nationwide STEM program with colleges and universities, and so he's quite familiar with all the STEM standards in the United States. And we matched him up with Liz Harris, who's 2-time former mayor of Big Bear, and she had started something called the Bear Valley Education Trust, a nonprofit organization. And they started this trust because they were just sick of the state of science education up there in their county. And so several very passionate educators and community leaders came together, and together with Mike, they went into schools all over that area for about a week leading up to the event. And what you're seeing here is something we call the STEM zone, and this is one of the robotics tables. Now you're seeing little robots here, but we had full life-size type robots in this STEM zone as well, and also interacting all over the Starlight Festival with people. So R2D2 was there, and Wally, and a very friendly robot called Rad was there, which was really interesting. The kids loved it. They were making Saturns. There was an Apollo moon rock there. There were meteorites they could see. Kids got meteorites. They left with meteorites there. So it was very, very interesting from a hands-on science aspect. And I think that's what got us our crowd that we were looking for, because we were looking for families. We were looking for kids of all ages, and we wanted to celebrate science in a party atmosphere.
Okay, so I'm hearing. Okay, I was hearing some static there. Don't know where that came from.
That was rad.
Oh, I see. Okay,
That
there
was
we
rad.
are. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So where I was, I didn't get out of the room much, so I never
Right.
got to see this guy.
This is rad being interviewed by one of the reporters that was there.
Well, we also have something that shows the overall activity on the first day at the festival. Maybe we can bring that up too and get a look at everything that's going on, because overall there were vendors who brought their telescopes, their products, all different kinds, quite a few tents of that set up. And here we're seeing setup here in the morning, final setup. But an awful lot of activity then as the people come in. There was a live stage for interviews and for music and much more.
No, we had gentlemen come in, I believe from Arizona, who played this beautiful ambient kind of music at night on this beautifully lit stage, along with the star party that happened that night. The lines were really quite long. At the very end of this time lapse that they did, you can kind of see the sun going down and the lights changing and some of the red lights coming on. So we got some good views actually from the parking lot there at Northwoods. Big Bear's fairly dark. We're up at several thousand feet, so you could see the stars quite well.
Yeah, and it was a pretty good view. RTMC away from town was the place to go for the darker skies, and that's where all the sort of hardcore astronomers were and usually are, although some visited here. How many people do you think carried over, went from Starlight Festival and ended up going over to the to RTMC for the star party there?
RTMC, I don't have a real number yet, but from what I understand, not a lot of people went over to the dark sky site, unfortunately. So my evil plan of trying to build up the RTMC Astronomy Expo didn't quite play out much the way I had hoped. I think that if we were to do something like that in the future, that there's some additional marketing that we need to do to make that happen. So there was just so much. It was so much fun at Starlight Festival too that a lot of people didn't want to leave. So
yeah, I can see that.
Right.
Well, and one of the other features at Starlight Festival too was speakers, and there were quite a few really good speakers. I know Linda Spilker from JPL was a big one, and there's also Dr. Seth Shostak from the SETI Institute, talking about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Yes.
Block of Africa, you don't see any elephants. I guess there aren't any.
Yeah, we really have only looked at a very statistically very tiny sample of what you would really need to look at in some detail before you could make any kind of a statement about.
That's right. Yeah, these results, these negative results, sometimes in astronomy particularly, in other areas of science actually, the negative results are significant. They mean something.
Yeah,
so that's great.
I don't think they mean anything yet.
That's Dr. Shostak talking about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence and the low probability of finding them and negative results. Apparently never turned around to see that the aliens that were there at the event. This is another thing that was popular with children of all ages, as you say, Scott. And Joe, you helped to coordinate all of these different interviews. The aliens, the robots. We'll show some pictures of that as well. What did that involve? I mean, this was quite a big show. Bringing people up to the mountains there to be able to experience all of this.
Let's just say my volunteer work reached out for about 9 months ahead of the festival. Yeah, that was kind of a fun part, was searching for companies and individuals that could bring something to the festival and that were willing to volunteer coming up there. For example, Rad the robot came from a company here in Los Angeles that does all of the robotics for like Disneyland and all the amusement parks. And when they heard about what we were trying to do, they said that they wanted to be involved, and they had RAD. And what we were able to do was come up with an idea where they would program RAD to actually speak or talk about the festival. So they programmed him for us, and then delivered him up the mountain to Big Bear. And there you see, he's from Garner Holtz Productions. So that was their contribution. I'm sure if we do another one, which we're thinking about next year, they'll very much be a part of it again. They were thrilled at how it all turned out.
Yeah.
They actually wanted to be more involved, but because of their production schedule and the time, couldn't get as involved as they wanted to be, but they were able to bring RAD to us. So I mean, that's just one instance. JPL was another. Who, Scott and I both have friends that work there, and we've been talking to them for months about the festival, and they really dug deep and even had satellites brought up and all kinds of things. And there you see in the background one of the satellites. So it's when you start talking outreach and you start talking about trying to bring science and technology and astronomy to families and kids in particular, companies just step up to the plate. And this is good evidence of it right here. The basic concept is everybody pitch in and try to bring as much as you can to the public. So.
Right. So what was the reaction from JPL and some of the others in terms of the crowd and participation here?
Well, everybody that we spoke to was thrilled and wanted to definitely be involved in a bigger way next time. As a matter of fact, we received an email from JPL in particular saying that next time they wanted to do it bigger and better. So that gives you an idea how thrilled everybody was.
That seemed to be across the board with everybody that was involved. From the speakers, Story Musgrave, another one astronaut that showed up and gave a tremendous lecture and interacted with the crowd, is looking to come back as well. So there's a lot of potential for doing a much bigger and better Starlight Festival.
Well,
this
here
had 5,000 people at it. So
5,000, that's terrific.
It really is about a group effort across the board. I mean, all the people that were involved. There's so many volunteers. I mean, people that worked for nothing and just pitched in and showed up with their telescopes. Came from, we had Sidewalk Astronomers came from San Francisco, and there were how many, Scott? Like 30 or 40 people with telescopes.
Well, not only them, but they were, because the Sidewalk Astronomers were there. And this. By the way, the whole festival is dedicated in memory to John Dobson, who gave, for his whole life did educational outreach in astronomy. And we had through John Safer Galleries and John Safer, we had awarded the Galaxy Award posthumously to John Dobson. But everyone understood what the vision and mission of this thing was. And I think for many of them, even though they hadn't done it before, when they got there, they saw it played out. And I think that was very satisfying to everyone that participated. And everybody knew that they were an integral part of it, so.
Right,
Joe
so
and
this... the two of you couldn't really be sure how this was going to work out either. I remember the night before people saying, well, let's see what happens, but there's no way to go. There wasn't any data. Nobody had really done something like this before. And there's Kevin Labor showing people the sky that night in the parking lot. So the Star Party was a big hit, but everything during the day as well.
Yes.
Any lessons learned in terms of what works best and what may not work best?
I think, it was interesting because we had no idea how many people were going to show up. Absolutely no idea whatsoever. All we kept trying to do was get the word out that this was going on. And we were a little concerned as well because of the distance, because it was in a remote area up in Big Bear, and because it was on Memorial Day weekend. Most people make plans for a long weekend. So I don't know. I mean, I think, we just threw caution to the wind and did it, and were pleasantly surprised at how many people did turn out. And people that came on Saturday, we found a lot of them, most of them, ended up coming back on Saturday because if you're, I don't know how many of you parents, but when you're a parent and you see a smile on your kid's face and you see your kid having fun and wanting to do more and more and more, you tend to go back. So we had a lot of families that we even got emails. I mean, we saw mothers in tears because they were just saying how fantastic it was for their kids and how much their kids enjoyed it and how much they liked it, because it wasn't just about the kids having fun, but they were also learning things without realizing they were learning things. It's sort of, it's that double-edged sort of, you try to educate, but at the same time, kids need to feel like they're enjoying themselves. I mean, you can see here, I think we're showing some video of kids looking at the sun. I mean, if you've never looked at the sun before, and for the first time you look through a telescope and you actually see the sun close up, it blows your mind. I don't care how old you are.
Learning is fun. I mean, and that's what kids want to do. We start off really curious and we explore and we want to learn things. And so doing that is, and I know Liam's going to be going crazy here because I have on this other computer, I'm not working it quite right, but but that's what kids like to do. It's not like we're forcing kids to learn something. It's just the way it's presented. And here, this is really exploring, and they get a first-hand look at the rest of the universe, and everybody loves that, and that brings out the kid in all of us. And the three of us know that this has been a big issue here in the U.S. for a long time. Is how do we get kids involved in astronomy again, like when we were younger? And it doesn't take too much more than looking through a telescope, and the STEM zone here did even more than that.
Yeah. So, that's what outreach is. It's just putting it out there and putting it in front of people so they can see for themselves. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times, even with the little outreach that I do every month in the park here locally, how many people look through a telescope and go, oh my God, I never thought you could see Saturn, or I never thought you could see something like that, a galaxy or a nebula or a globular cluster. I mean, when you see stuff like that through even the smallest of telescopes, you're blown away. You're completely blown away. You think, oh, it's a picture. No, it's here. So, and that's the fun of it for us. That's why we kind of volunteer and do what we do. I think all of us feel the same way. It's sort of that joy of turning people on to something that we know is so beautiful and so informative.
Well, that's the difference with astronomy, is that we are all amateurs, and the thing that we love to do most is share it with everyone else. It's like John Dobson, who always said that the first time he looked through a telescope, he just said, well, everybody's got to see this.
Yeah.
And he devoted the rest of his life to making that happen. And so that's why there aren't any other scientific fields where we have so many different volunteers. People are just passionate about sharing it with others. Mm-hmm. And it is something that interests everybody. That's what Astronomers Without Borders is about, is connecting people through that really universal interest in astronomy.
Yes.
And I'll just mention that I missed most of what was going on outside because we were in a room of next to JPL. Astronomers Without Borders had a program of bringing people in, amateur astronomers active in clubs, planetariums around the world, and having some live discussions with them, and we hope to be able to bring that to everyone soon once all the video that was recorded, because you had 2 of your cameras in our room for the entire weekend. So there's a lot of footage there, and I hope to be able to bring a highlights reel with that as well. And that was broadcast around the festival. These are all innovative things that are of interest to everybody, but not things that people have necessarily tried before. So yeah, it was a great experience.
I'll also underline something that we didn't. One of the lessons learned about doing. There was a couple of lessons learned. One is that we did not promote the fact that this was a free event. Okay. This was a free event, and we didn't charge a dime to anyone to do anything, okay? But the other one is that other exhibitors that had come there who had just done a standard setup, expecting kind of a standard interaction, quickly learned that this was really all about getting hands-on. And so the next Starlight Festival we do, I will challenge every exhibitor to have some sort of activity for kids or for young adults or for adults to really do something beyond just looking through the eyepiece of a telescope, but something where they really leave having done something more in depth. And so that's really, I think that's part of the success of it. So
yeah, and I have to agree too. I heard some of the vendors who I know who work with and supports Astronomers Without Borders say that, gee, we needed to have more beginner stuff and so on. This is a different type of event than RTMC was, where the hardcore amateur astronomers are, and where they're looking for bigger telescopes and fancier eyepieces. This is something where families are attending and they're getting involved, and it's exciting the children, and therefore, as Joe said, exciting the parents as well. So they learned a little bit there as well. So what about next time? Where and when will this happen again? It is going to continue.
I think we got really lucky with the timing, because it wasn't good timing from a couple of aspects, as Joe pointed out. One of them being that it was Memorial Day weekend. People do plan for barbecues or family get-togethers months and months in advance, sometimes a year in advance. The other aspect is May is still kind of springtime kind of weather, and the weather can be iffy. We had rain, pretty heavy rain on Thursday night. It snowed at the RTMC Astronomy Expo area during that time. We got very lucky that it cleared off for us, which was great. But it could have been otherwise and rained out the whole event. The other part is that when I asked people how, if they gave a percentage of how important STEM was to the festival, the consensus was that it had about 60% weight. Okay, so STEM learning, STEM activities, STEM fun was really super important to the event. The end of May is almost at the end of the school year, and so when we wanted to go out to the schools to give our presentations, there was some problems that Liz Harris and her team helped us solve in getting into the schools, because they were doing their final test. They were wrapping up the school year. So I'm thinking that probably the next Starlight Festival would happen probably in late September, is what I'm thinking.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds
lets
good.
them start the school year, which is also a bad time, and we don't want to get too late in the year because it's going to get cold. And but that time of the year also is probably a little bit more favorable time for weather. And where it's going to be, Joe and I and the rest of the team will be discussing that. We've got some ideas that range from doing it in Orlando to San Antonio, Central Park in New York, maybe Johnson Space Center. There's could be Big Bear again, but there's some problems that we need to solve with parking and space, because the next one will be much larger.
And are you seeing this? You're talking about places all over. This was, well, it was something of a local event. Most of the attendees were locals, and there were people who came to participate from all over the country, and as we saw from across the galaxy. But is this, are you looking at making this a major national event that people will attend from all over?
Yes. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Because it's outreach, and to do outreach, you need to go out there. So.
Yeah. Could there be multiple Starlight Festivals eventually, sort of regional ones?
Possibly. Once the organization gets a little bit more mature, that's a distinct possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think Liam has queued up now the video that was taken recently. Also at Starlight Festival. Now this is in the room where we did our program, where we had a big monitor and we brought people in from around the world that, again, had its technical issues, as it always does, doing things like this with people in very strange time zones relative to us. So, I didn't expect this to be a major thing, but I made it into an organization interview. Brings people together around the world through a common interest in astronomy. We're all sharing the same sky. Astronomy is in every culture. There isn't any place where people aren't looking up at the sky and wondering about it and wanting to see more things and travel to the moon and everything else. So we have global programs. Some programs very large that involve most of the world's countries, many thousands of people who take part in programs where we're all observing together, or other programs too that are smaller where we just connect people in different countries to share what it is that they're doing. The whole idea is this transcends the borders that we usually have. Everyone sees the moon from where they are. And so sometimes it's intimate sharing on a one-to-one basis between groups, and sometimes it's just huge programs where we're all involved. Anybody have any questions for Julio in Nicaragua? Here at the Starlight Festival, what we've done is try to bring in as many different countries as we could live to interact with the people here at the festival. What this is for the people who are just interested, for the families, for the kids, and it's introducing people to something that everyone is interested, but they've never looked through a telescope before. It's almost as though our shells are different, we look different, we wear different clothes, speak a different language, but inside we're all doing the same thing. And this gives everyone a sense of belonging together on the same planet. Well, I guess it was Liam who's behind the scenes who had some part in that. Joe, it was your production friend, his production company that edited that, put it all together. So I'm not even sure who to thank. It was such a big team, but that's a great video that we'll probably use in the future, and it really does express what Astronomers Without Borders is about and how this comes together in a big event like the Starlight Festival. So what can we expect in the future? You have some videos up there. Is Mark producing some more, or Liam, or whoever else is here? And get your microphone there. Still muted.
The Astronomy Outreach Network is one of the offshoots, or actually, the Astronomy Outreach Network came first. And it's something we're in discussion about. We're actually trying to advance the Astronomy Outreach Network as an actual network for astronomers. So There will be more editing of a lot of the footage in the future, and I guess I could talk about this, Scott. It's okay. That we're going to launch the network at some point in the near distant future. I mean, it's actually launched, but in a more profound way. There'll be a lot more content available to see on the network itself. A lot of it, some of it will be, the interviews and the speakers, as well as other projects. One of the things that was done, for example, this year was a documentary at the Big Bear Solar Observatory, which is a half-hour documentary that was done up there, and they were very much part of the festival as well. And so those things are, I mean, just on an ongoing basis available on the network itself, which is located on Vimeo. So.
Okay. Well, Scott, let's talk business.
Okay.
You're a trustee on the board of trustees of Astronomers Without Borders, and you have been since the beginning.
Sure.
And a huge help with getting us going, and responsible for a lot of what's happening. Astronomy Outreach Network is doing, so there are a lot of us in this relatively small community trying to do astronomy outreach for STEM and other purposes around the world. And we all work together and complement each other. There's a lot to do. So what are we going to do? What are your ideas? Astronomy Outreach Network, Astronomers Without Borders, how can we help what you're doing?
How can we help together? Well, first off, it's just continuing to collaborate, in every way that we can. We cannot do too much outreach. That's impossible to do. Okay, there's never going to be a point where we saturate humans' quest for knowledge and the need to know more. We're innately curious animals. We're born to explore, and the vision and mission of AWB unifies, with the one sky, I mean, the way that you very poetically put it in the film clip, you really brought together the essence of what AWB is. Astronomers Without, or Astronomy Outreach Network, is a little bit different in the respect that we try to popularize, recognize individuals and organizations who do this kind of work. How we can collaborate on things, there's many different ways. We can do things through our new network that Jill was alluding to with video, through things like the Starlight Festival, through, we haven't collaborated on a recognition program yet, but that's in the cards as well. Anything that you want to come up with is game. So
I put you on the spot here, Scott, by saying what do we do? And you did very well, though.
We also do, in addition to the recognition and popularizing that we do, we also have a donation program that we do, and AWB is an official partner organization of Astronomy Outreach Network, and so as my company and other companies donate stuff, okay, we give that stuff back to the partner organizations. I know several organizations that would like to get everything that we have, but we kind of parse it out. And one of the things that we did was for the Challenger Astronomy Club, who was not a nonprofit organization. They joined us as a partner, and through us, they were able to get a donation because somebody wanted to donate a 14-inch Meade RCX 400 telescope to this club, and they wanted a write-off. So what we did is we made it a restricted donation. She donated to us. We made sure the telescope got to them, and everybody was happy. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot that we can do, and as you say, there are a lot more people to reach. We have 7 billion. I don't think we've reached all of those people yet. There's an awful lot more to do.
Surface of that, so.
Astronomers Without Borders will certainly take part in spreading the wealth of resources that Astronomy Outreach Network is creating to people around the world. And right now you're based in the U.S., but we'll certainly help do this in many countries around as well as increase awareness in the U.S.
Once the network gets launched, one of the things that we can help with, and this is just coming to mind right now, is Global Astronomy Month. You know, Global Astronomy Month technically is probably the world's largest star party because it's held all over the world, and for the entire month. And so there are things that we can do through highlighting videos and stuff that would be produced for that kind of thing. So,
well, there are big plans for 2015 for Global Astronomy Month. Most people aren't aware that 2015 is the International Year of Light, just as the International Year of Astronomy was in 2009. This is UNESCO approved. It is very late getting started. Global Astronomy Month is one of the things that will be highlighted by the International Astronomical Union's participation there. So we're already working on Global Astronomy Month for 2015. We have huge opportunities, and this is going to be a big expansion in a number of ways. So yeah, we should aim for that. We have a little bit to talk about here, Scott.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah. So
very good.
I want to thank you, Scott, for all the work you do and have done in bringing astronomy to people everywhere and exciting people, and Joe Napolitano, who stepped out of his comfort zone a little bit as well. Got dragged out of it by Scott.
Joe is innately involved in educational outreach and astronomy. He is in my mind, one of the best leaders out there. So he's really done an amazing job putting on Starlight Festival. Joe kind of underplays that, but he had incredible participation in this. He did, in fact, give up 9 months of his life to make it happen. I give Joe a tremendous amount of credit to the success of this event.
Oh, thank you. You're sweet.
Well, amen to that.
I just volunteer my time.
I saw what was going on there with you, Scott, and with Joe running things. It was really impressive. It was just fun to be around as things were getting set up. I mean, the chaotic day before was a lot of fun just to be there.
Right.
And Joe was the leader of the chaos.
It was
pulled it all together. And Liam, of course, too. We've got to get in here before this show ends. Yeah. So thank you both for joining us, and I hope that there are more events we can bring to everybody soon, and we'll be talking about the Starlight Festival 2015, and especially about the Astronomy Outreach Network as this really gets launched. And I hope we'll have a major part in it as well.
Yes.
We're all in this together.
Yes.
And we'll do it together. All right. Thanks very much, both of you. Well, a little change of gears here. We're going to now go over to our astro-artist. Nahum Mantra comes to us from Mexico City, and Nahum has been a space artist doing some very, very interesting things for a number of years. And I'm afraid since we are a little bit late getting this one on, Nahum, because of Global Astronomy Month, it really overwhelms us. We don't have the resources to run this, but we have to do it, and we're working on that for next year. So, Nahum, you are our featured artist. You'll have to remind me, was that during Global Astronomy Month itself in April?
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so well, welcome. I'm glad to have you here from Mexico City, which is where you're from, and to have you talking about the art that you have done. And maybe we'll we've been talking about some projects for the future that are interesting. Not all put together yet, but we can talk about that as well, that we may collaborate in Astronomers Without Borders. So, but we have some of the examples of your art as well. Why don't you tell us what it is that we are showing here, what your art is about, what it is that you try to bring to everyone through your art?
Yeah, well, first, hello to everyone. Yeah, I've been working not as long as you guys in the space sector. I've been around for I think it's already 7 years since I got a very kind invitation from Roger Malina and the Arts Catalyst, who were setting up the first technical activities committee for the cultural utilizations of space inside the International Astronautical Federation, which is the body that puts together all the space agencies and space industries, and especially it deals with space exploration, with taking machines and objects into space for all sorts of reasons. So I think, I mean, 7 years ago it was a great sign that the federation showed interest in having artists in their activities officially. So the first image that you were showing, that's one of the congresses where we artists can have a voice and can actually work on agendas, cultural and artistic agendas for space missions. And we've been doing that. It's been a great learning process, as it's not always easy as an artist to go and sit down with someone who's building a rocket or a satellite or is involving human space flight and design a joint project. So we've been very slowly but surely working with them and finding ways to open these gates to all the people, especially artists, that want to collaborate with space scientists and space professionals.
Now, just to be clear, the International Astronautical Federation and their Congress is huge. This is the premier organization and meeting for astronautics in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. It's the main organization, and everyone is in it. It has hundreds of members, including big ones as NASA, Boeing, Airbus, the European Space Agency, and so on. So yeah, it's amazing that we have this opportunity to be there, and actually because the Federation has the status of observer within the United Nations, every year we get to write a report on what is happening culturally and artistically in space to the UN. So this is just, I mean, it's we're working on making it evident of how any activity that we carry on in space it's also a cultural activity, and just to question what are we representing when we get out of the planet.
And that's so the IAF. What is their interest in this? Because we think of aeronautics as being engineering and some science. It's all technical. Is this about for them making more of a connection with more people around the world, because they certainly do things that everybody is interested in? So how does this benefit them, at least from their perspective?
I think they have realized that if, I mean, you were talking before about outreach, and I think artists are good at it, and it's not only that we communicate what's happening to other kind of audiences, but it's also, I think, the power of artists to look from different perspectives and to make things engaging to the public. And also, I mean, there have been artists working with space professionals for many years. I mean,
Sure.
actively collaborating. We can talk about 60 years of really having artists in labs and sending. I mean, there is art on the moon. There has been art sent to Mars. So I mean, that's one aspect, no, like taking artworks into space, but also all the things that are happening here. I mean, and there are many things that we are trying to push in the committee, and things that are important for us, like, for example, cultural topics and social topics such as gender in space. You know, like what are we reflecting from Earth cultures into space? And women have been traditionally neglected from scientific circles. That is changing now. But it's important to keep talking about that. An example comes to mind, and that is Mercury 13 project that from NASA, and they were training a group of women to go to the moon before, and suddenly that didn't happen, and actually NASA doesn't recognize that project as an official one. And there are many interesting stories. So one of the things that we've been doing with this committee is a series of gatherings, and now it's becoming more a sort of festival, and that is Cosmica, and we're actually seeing some pictures about that.
Well, yeah, let's take a look at some of the things you have here. We've had some pictures up there showing an audience seated on the floor, and this might be the art piece there. So I'm just I'm not giving Liam any guidelines here, just copying it on him. So is this people who are engaged in the performance that is in the other picture we're about to look at?
Yeah. What we're watching is one of our Cosmica festivals, and that was in Mexico. I think that was from a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
what is this about here?
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, that's
there we go. Thank you.
So, Cosmica started as an experiment of this committee in London to provide a space where people that were working, artists that were working with space, could showcase and talk in a very informal setting, a very accessible. They could share their work to an audience in a relaxed way at night with a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And it was just an experiment to see how many people were interested.
What is this one about with the white-suited people there and whatever gadgets they have in front of them?
This is the Mexican Space Collective, and this group of Mexican artists, they have been designing a series of satellites, which that they are going to use to make sound compositions and sound experiments with a satellite, and they are thinking of establishing some listening bases in different parts of the world. So they receive the sounds from the satellite, and then they mix it, and they create a concert out of it. So they were doing one of the a sample concert in one of these Cosmicas, and I have to say that these people that we see in the pictures, they're leading Mexican artists. They are all over the world showing the work. They are in the big biennales and big museums. So it's a very important group of artists here in Mexico that are also looking at space and developing projects.
Let's take a look at some other artwork that you have here. Now this is interesting. What is this about?
Yeah, well, that's different from Cosmica. Those are some antennas that receive different radiations from space with VLF, very low frequency, and what I wanted to do is to offer like an intimate and personal experience of space phenomena to people, and these antennas they do that. They get this very low frequency, and then they get amplified. So in that space there was like a beautiful soundscape of space sounds.
Wow. Wow. So let's go on a little bit and see some of the other works while we have time.
Yeah, this is a new artwork, and it's going to be exhibited next month in the National Art Center here in Mexico. And it was based on, because I've been having conversations with JPL, with near Earth objects, working groups in different countries, and I've been fascinated by all this interest that we have, of obvious interest in tracking extremely dangerous objects, and how this could change life as we know it. So I thought initially of designing an alarm system which could tell us if a meteorite was going to hit the Earth, or an asteroid or a comet, in a really dangerous way. So I started working with all these monitoring groups and getting the databases and the real-time information. And as we know, there's no way to predict an exact impact, and also an impact within the next 100 years. A really dangerous impact is not likely to happen. However, I wanted to create this kind of alarm system. So playing with information that I was getting, I designed this series of 8 speakers that receive all this information from the dangerous objects, and using a very similar strategy used by Johannes Kepler to harmonize the planets. I used exactly something very similar to harmonize all these objects. So what it is creating is actually, it sounds like an orchestra. It creates music, and there are like different voices and different instruments that are assigned to all the different objects. And because we know the probability or the danger level of one of all these objects, I use them to lead the symphony. But this is in real time. Is everything coded? A computer is actually making the score. So it's a way of making a possible disaster something really something extremely beautiful.
Well, maybe maybe next time too. We didn't get the audio from this. Maybe next time we can share that as well if you have a recording of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be for the first time show next month. So I will make sure to take a nice video and record some sound.
Yeah. So yeah, we'd love to have a follow up on that. I'd like to hear what that's about. So next, I think we have a few more pieces here that we can take a look at.
Yeah. This is a performance of mine with a French artist called Anaïs. And we were very interested in exploring the Somnium, which is a text written by Johannes Kepler. And what we were really, really interested in was I mean, this book is about a guy who goes to sleep, and then he has a dream, and in this dream he goes to the moon. Okay, and from the moon he was able to make some observations about the way that the planets were moving. And it was a way for Kepler to talk about the Copernican revolution without 100% saying he was supporting that. So that's why he wrote it as a sort of fiction. People were still being executed for this kind of ideas, like Giordano Bruno a few years before he wrote this text. So But what is very interesting in this book is how Kepler thought that someone could go to the moon. Like, how did you manage in the early Renaissance to send someone? And because Kepler's mother was a witch, Kepler he knew a lot of witchcraft himself, and he thought that a good way to go to the moon was to conjure the demon of Libania, no? Libania is moon in Jewish. So actually, what we do in this performance is to talk about. I spent 2 years researching this. We went to the places where Kepler lived. We spoke with witches in the area. We investigated the space traveling methods and techniques developed in that time. So it's actually a lecture of the possibilities of space flight in Kepler's time. And eventually, we found a very interesting text of a conjure to take you to the moon. That possibly that's what Kepler was thinking in his time. So we reproduce the conjure, and there is fire, and there are like a lot of magical effects, and strange things happen, and eventually we reveal with the ashes of the fire the demon that can take you to the moon, and actually it's not a demon, it's a rocket. So it's interesting, all these metaphors that I don't think Kepler really believed that, but he didn't have another way of explaining it. And I think it was just a metaphor for his time. So that's
yeah, so these are fascinating, and your ways in which you engage people directly is something that certainly appeals to a lot, and I wish we had more time to spend our hours about up here. But we do want to have a follow-up with you on. We'd really like to hear. We've had some chat about it here. We would like to hear about we'd like to hear the soundtrack that comes out of your exhibition there.
Sure.
And you know, I'm going to have to ask you about one more artwork here that I'm not sure if this is a live performance art, if it's a photograph.
Yeah.
But
okay.
This shows you're pretty out there. So
yeah,
you know, let's ask quickly
that's
about.
Not me, actually. It's something that in my general work I'm directing myself to, and this is the work of a very interesting artist that I really want to mention. He's the Congo astronaut. And I think this is a clear example of where's the value of developing space projects in not the obvious places. There are amazing things happening in Africa, for example, in Latin America, and in these countries. Well, there are no major space programs as such. But there are people thinking about space, and people using space in poetic ways to explain themselves, to explain their situations, to explain gender issues, knowledge issues, border issues, and I think this is in my research work. This is something I really want to focus myself in the future, because I think people, for example, people in the Space Federation, they are very receptive to knowing how other people are relating themselves to space, and not in places that have a big space agencies, but in really remote and left behind places. So I just wanted to show this artist from Congo. He's doing poetic actions on the streets, and he's a space traveler in the streets of Congo. And I just thought it was worth mentioning the work of this guy.
Well, it's very interesting, that's for sure. And I wish we had more time to talk about this and what he's doing and how these things affect all of us. We're running a little short, but let's bring you back again another time for a follow-up on a couple of these things that are coming up. I'd love to have you on again for that. So thanks very much for joining us, Nahum, and giving it a second try here. It's good to talk to you again, and we'll be working together, I'm sure. So now I'm going to force our producer, Liam, here to show himself. He's looking behind, showing all the pictures and the videos and things. But Liam, I wanted to bring you in for just a minute as well. Let's see. There we are. Hello, Liam.
Let me turn up my microphone. Then you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone.
Yeah, so I like to have you in to recognize what you're doing, helping us out with these things and solving the technical problems that we had and so on. But you also had a big part in the Starlight Festival. You were working away for days there. I know it was hard for me to pull you away for a quick break. So what did you do, and what did you think of the whole thing?
Oh, so what I did was I was behind the scenes feeding out all of the video that was being captured and edited, and then feeding them out to the monitors that were all around the place. Also, it was my crew that were in your room capturing hours and hours of your interactions with everyone. Mm-hmm. And then the other aspect that was going on, of course, with the Starlight Festival was it was educational, and there were some spectacular speaker presentations. So you know, that was one of the most popular parts of it, was actually getting the public connected to what's really going on in many different areas of astronomy, space, education. So my team was were in those rooms capturing that, and I'm sure you're going to see, you know, some great video assets coming out from Joe's team and Scott's team shortly about all of that.
That's great.
So,
and I want to ask you too about something else. You can move over a little bit to the side, because I know you have a poster there about it. I want to know how this is going. I'll go the other way. There you go.
Oh, there
ISS above. Because this is something that's really great, and I've been talking to you about trying to base a worldwide educational program on this device. But how are things going with ISS above? The small device that tells you when the International Space Station is above your horizon, whether it's daytime or nighttime, whether you can see it or not. So
yeah,
how does that go?
I'm going to go get one to put in front of the camera. So just to quickly show this. So yeah, this was just, I would call it a rather, you know, odd idea that I had to build a little device that its sole purpose was to bring awareness to the International Space Station coming over where you are, where you hang out. Because a lot of people know that it's up there, but they don't know when it's up there. So what I was trying to do was to build something that was really for my kids and my grandkids. And I was really shocked when I found out that lots of people wanted one.
Well, so, I chose yellow.
You chose yellow, yeah, you did.
You can see here in my picture.
Oh yeah, let me go. Oh, cool. Let me switch back to you. Ah, that's right. You know, yeah, I actually prefer the ones that are lighter in color. Because you can see the wording on it very well.
It's aesthetic. So, so what we've talked about this before, and I know it was a huge hit. What can people do if they're interested in looking at more about this? Go directly to the website. You had a great Kickstarter campaign that was very successful. So,
yeah, they can just go to issabove.com to find out more information about it. You can actually purchase one there, and I am currently developing the next version, because I don't know whether you know this, I think many people do, some people it's a surprise, is the space station now has live HD quality video being streamed 24/7. It's only visible when it's over a daylight part of the Earth, but it's really quite exciting. So now what happens is, you know, the ISS above lights up when the space station is coming over your area, and now when this is plugged into an HDMI monitor, it will automatically switch to showing the view from the space station down at your neck of the woods. So to me, it's not just a gimmick. For me, what this is about is connecting, you with what's going up in space. When I think of the fact that there are 6, it's the only place that we have humans in space right now. Right. And I find that to be a very inspiring thing. I know astronauts are really inspired by what goes on, when they go up there and spend time looking down on the Earth. And I think we can be inspired by that, and this device sort of helps you get there.
Yes, well, the combination of that with the HD video now coming from the International Space Station is fantastic. So this is only getting better and better. And I don't know if my early version has that capability now, or I may have to upgrade here. But for those who don't have theirs yet, just check it out. And I hope that we will be doing something. I know you've been too busy, but I can see this as being really valuable to get to schools around the world and use this to connect people with space. And then again, as through our motto, One People, One Sky, to connect. We're all looking at the same thing, but now we have this, the International Space Station that's passing over most of the world at one time or another. We can use that in the same way.
Mostly, 5 or 6 or 7 times every single day, over 90% of the Earth's population can get a chance to know that it's above them. So yeah, I think it is a very, it's something that can bring people together.
Yeah.
It respects no borders, so it's that's the great thing.
That's right.
Where you are.
That's right. Yeah, you can't stay in one place from low Earth orbit. So it goes everywhere. Well, thanks for that, Liam, and thanks again for helping with the production of this Hangout as you did, as you have done in the past, and hope you will continue to. And I'd like to also thank our guests there, Nahum Mantra, Astro-artist Scott Roberts of Astronomy Outreach Network, Joe Napolitano, who has left the set, and we'll have some follow-ups on all of these things, more coming out of Astronomy Outreach Network, as well as Starlight Festival, and Nahum will have some things to share from his work as well. I want to mention that just 2 weeks from now, a regular monthly hangout for Astronomers Without Borders for June will be a wrap-up event for Global Astronomy Month. We are going to have people from around the world who have had the biggest events, biggest programs for Global Astronomy Month. We're going to talk about what had happened, and we're going to talk about some very exciting plans for the future. So that one we want to push out there widely, put it on your calendars, tell your friends about it if there's any interest in the world's biggest outreach programs and what they've done and how they will be expanding, then that'll be the place to be. So that'll be June 26th at 1600 hours UT, Thursday. And until then, just 2 short weeks from now, I'll say goodbye from Astronomers Without Borders. Thank you for joining us. And this will be recorded and in the archives, so that if you find anything of interest there, you can share it with your friends as well. So thank you for joining us, and goodbye for now.